Let's talk about President Trump's being arrested. Based upon everything that the Lord's been showing me since 1984, and since President Bush Jr. got in office in 2000, and based upon what President Trump said before elected and after elected, that President Bush was guilty of war crimes. He should have never taken Saddam out of power. I believe what's happening with President Trump, whether he's in on it or not. Remember, before he ran for president, he was supposed to be a Democrat. Then after he runs, he's a Republican. I believe this whole setup is to set a precedent, very possibly, to arrest President George W. Bush on war crimes. Now, if anybody's been paying real close attention to the media around the world, listen to the Arab Street, the European Street, the Asian Street, all around the world with different nations. It's come up over and over. The African Street, the continent of Africa. Everybody raising hell and talking about America killed millions of people in the Iraq war that was not justified, and called it an illegal war because Saddam did not have WMDs. Recently, Putin brought up, when the Ukraine war started, are you joking? The American government is getting on me for this? When Ukraine is part of the Russian bread basket and has been for over 1,000 years, right on my border, and the Americans with the Britons overthrew the Iraqi government, killed its leader, and killed millions. You're kidding me that they're charging me with doing something illegal, and then just recently, the International Criminal Court charged Putin with war crimes. It was after President Putin brought up a year or so ago that it was a joke, that he was doing wrong based upon what America and Bush did. It was right after that, in a week or so, President Bush was giving a speech, one of the few speeches he's given since he got out of office, because he can't leave the country and go anywhere because there's arrest warrants for him. And by the way, I did vote for him. I'm just telling you, the news, the noise on the street around the world. President Bush, after accusing President Putin of being a war criminal, was giving a speech accusing Putin of being a war criminal, and said what he did going into Iraq was a war crime. And he's, oh, wait, no, not Iraq. I went into Iraq. Freudian slip. You call it what you want to call it. There are indications that President Trump is in on this. He's part of it. Back when that war started and all that mess went down, his ranch outside of Crawford, Texas, which Putin met him there one time, was always having protests, calling Bush a war criminal. I think it's a real good possibility this whole thing is being set up to make it not be a big deal when President Bush is arrested. They're trying the waters now, they're feeling it out and getting the nation used to it, to grab another president. Now, I mentioned that this stuff goes all the way back to 84. The first dream that I had in 1984 was America was being invaded by Islam on American Airlines. And it was right before that that the first American real estate Israeli peace deal was done with American presidents being the broker, real estate broker for the land of Israel, giving their land away when Jimmy Carter did Camp David and took land and gave it to Egypt so Israel could have peace. Every president after that was working some kind of angle, including Reagan, to bring peace to the Middle East, but it involved messing with the land of Israel that the Bible tells us in the last days, in the book of Joel, in the book of Zechariah, that those who mess with that land, divide that land, will be cut to pieces themselves. When George Bush Sr. got in on the peace deal, he was in Oslo, Norway, trying to work something out, and a storm blew his house off of the foundation there in Kennebunkport. A warning. But that thing didn't go anywhere until Bill Clinton got in office and took the Oslo Accords and got them on the White House lawn with Rabin and Arafat and him, Clinton. And just divided the land up. That was 93. In 1995, I dreamed 12 hours before the assassination of Rabin, he was assassinated. This stuff is all written down and documented in 5 binder journals like this, and there's 28 of these things. The Lord asked me the next Sunday, 2 days later, as I was leaving the church house, what am I going to do to those who twist Israel's arm behind their back to make them give their land away? If I took Rabin out to apple my eye out, what am I going to do to those who twisted Rabin's arm behind his back? Now, Arafat died too. The only one of that whole bunch that's still alive is Clinton, the Oslo Accords. I said, Lord, I don't know. No, I didn't hear him screaming with the audible voice. I heard him in my spirit. I heard it. I heard it. You call it conscious, whatever you want to call it. I said, Lord, I don't know. What? And he didn't answer. 13 years later, I walked in the door and I saw that Obama won the presidency. And I thought, man, we already knew this guy was a Islamist terrorist, a communist, a radical, just full of mess. Like America didn't have enough problems. So I turned off the TV and went to my desk and opened the paper. I'm going through there and I get on the last page where it's doing the birthdays. And the very last thing it said, today is the day of the anniversary of the assassination of Rabin, the president of Israel. Then I heard the Lord answer the question He asked me 13 years earlier to the day. This is what I do to those who twist the apple of my eye's arm behind his back to make him give the land of Israel away. Obama nation. And Obama gets in office, and America's been doing like this ever since he got in. Going downhill, downhill, downhill. More dividing, more racism, more division, more violence. In other words, America is reaping dividing the land of Israel. By dividing the land of Israel, it's allowing Israel's enemies to cut them off and get them in a situation they can't survive. So what's happening is being reversed on us, and the enemies of America are destroying it and cutting it in pieces. And by the way, this stuff's all written down. So George Bush divides the land before Obama. And when he does, Israel's prime minister, Sharon, has a stroke, is in a coma stroke for 10 years. And that same week, a hurricane hits New Orleans and kills 3,000 people. Just about the number of people that Sharon Bush, Condoleezza Rice deal had carried out of Gaza and the West Bank. Destroyed 17 synagogues. Then, and that's before Obama. Then Obama gets in, and we cast the first vote against Israel since she's been a nation behind Obama. Obama has his, whoever she was, Secretary of State, whatever, vote against Israel. Then Hillary thinks she's going to get it. And quote, she doesn't. For his third term Obama. But we get Trump. And Trump does have sodomite parties at his home in Mar-a-Lago. I've not known a lot of conservatives that do that, or Republicans. I'm sure there's some. There's hypocrites everywhere. But what really told on him was this Abraham Accord deal. That thing was written up that China's building a highway across Israel, right across the middle, and that as time went on, East Jerusalem would be turned over to the Palestinians. And the parts of the land in Israel that the Palestinians would get would be around outside the cities of the Jews. In other words, to get out of a Jewish city and go somewhere, you have to go through Palestinian territory. To come into those cities, you'd have to come through Palestinian territory. So it may have been the worst peace deal of all that Trump was pushing, that now is still being pushed by Biden and these other people, the Abraham Accords. America is reaping what she's sown with Israel. Let me share something else with you. I start this off by talking about war crimes George Bush. I had dreams before the war started. Saddam was in a room with President Bush and his men around a long table like this talking. He was sitting in the corner listening to everything they said. Knew it all. After the war started, I dreamed 3 times in the next 7 years. President Bush was arrested for war crimes, and the last time he was in chains. Well, now there is a psalm. It could be Psalm 145 or 137. It passes me by right now. It says that's exactly what God does with rulers of nations that's done Israel evil. That their kings will be put in chains. So I want everything to be okay in America. But opinion does not outweigh what's written in the book, the Bible. And America is in a mess. And Joe Biden is a mess. Against Israel also. So, don't be drawn in by, read your Bible, pray. It's getting late. Whether it's pre-trib, mid-trib, or post-trib, it's late. We're at the end of the 6th day. There's only one more left, that's the millennium. So we have got to get the rapture, pre or mid or post wrapped up for the second coming of Christ. And that's a 7-year period to end the 6th day, going into the 7th, the millennium. Read your Bible and pray. Jesus is Lord.